we're going to hop online on the BMO Harris Bank caller line. BMO Harris, the bank that defines great customer service, is our good friend from the Arizona Central, our good friend Paul Coro, for the next 15 minutes, talk about the Phoenix Suns. Paul, how you doing?
All right, how are you?
We're doing great, Paul. For those who don't know Paul Coro, he is one of the most entertaining people outside of his writing, because he is one of the best writers in the country covering the Phoenix Suns. But if you ever follow him on social media, he always has the most interesting pictures of different people. Last night he had a picture of Boy George at the Clippers game last night. Obviously, that was the best thing about the game last night, because obviously covering the Suns, Paul, was a pretty bad experience. What do you think?
Yeah, that was of all the things of that night, I'll probably remember two things: the night they lost by 40, and the night I met the Boy George.
There we go. Paul, the Suns were one of the teams with the biggest, storyline of the trade deadline. They traded Markieff Morris away for a first-round pick, DeJuan Blair, and Chris Humphries. In your opinion, when you first saw the trade, what was going through your mind when you first saw it?
Finally. I mean, that thing had been in the works since the off-season, since he'd asked for it, since he'd been calling them out on social media, and they just couldn't really get a deal that made sense at the time. And it took basically all season to try to rebuild his image, which he took down a few pegs before he finally built it up a little bit with his play right before the trade deadline. But and then the second take was that they came away pretty good for it. I mean, for all the baggage attached to his name, to get him a first-round pick that's probably middle first-round pick and a couple expiring contracts, I think they came out pretty well. He's a guy that will probably help Washington. He's on a good contract. He'll be a motivated player. There's no doubt he'll probably end up performing better there. But it was just something that they needed to cut ties with at this point.
Now, the locker room vibe for Phoenix is now a different vibe. Do you feel like it's completely different with Markieff now out of the picture, or do you think it's the same, or do you think there's something different going on out there?
Well, there was no problem with chemistry with Markieff Morris. So, if anything, guys are sad that he's gone. Everybody liked him. He was a good teammate. He was a bit of a distraction with what had been going on with him, but especially guys that have been on the team for a few years, like Archie Goodwin, P.J. Tucker, they've become really close with him. So I think guys actually miss him, and certainly basketball-wise they miss him because they've got, no scorers on the team right now. But, it's the distraction of it. The city, the organization, I think all of them feel kind of a relief to have that off their shoulders, because it was just a dark cloud kind of hanging over them. No matter, there was missteps along the way that made things worse with the towel incident, or shoving Archie Goodwin, or getting benched, or playing poorly, and it was just one thing after another that never really showed signs of getting better.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because Markieff Morris being shipped out is kind of it's ushering in a new wave essentially, or starting somewhat fresh, because now it's legitimately a young team. I mean, you got Bledsoe and Knight that are pretty much the leaders of that team. The rest of the team, you got Tyson Chandler also that's a veteran, but the rest of the team's pretty young. So what do you see going forward for this team? Is it going to be a rebuilding youth movement? Are they going to bring in some veterans to help out? I mean, what can we expect out of the Phoenix Suns for the next year and a half?
I mean, they've kind of underwent all of what you already said. They had their youth movement, and they brought in veterans this year to try to take it to a playoff level. So, what they do now is probably like a restructure of the team. They've only got like 3 players left from 3 seasons ago. So what they're doing is they're going to have to reevaluate everything from the front office to the roster. They're not competitive right now. They're probably the worst team in the league since mid-December. And it's just going to take a wide-ranging view of the philosophy of the whole organization, because they've rebuilt this a couple times since they've been in the 2010 conference finals, and they haven't been in the playoffs since then. And so how can you keep asking fans to be patient, but also how can you do this right to build it from the ground up into something that'll be sustainable?
When you look at like you said, the youth movement, especially in Phoenix. You have a bunch of guards. Paul mentioned Bledsoe. You mentioned Brandon Knight. You have Archie Goodwin, Devin Booker. T.J. Warren. Who plays swing position, and you have P.J. Tucker. You have a whole bunch of guards out there. What is their thinking with Booker and Goodwin? Are they the backcourt of the future, or is Bledsoe and Knight still those two guys?
That's a really good one right now because they had been operating under this philosophy that they were going to run this two playmaker system, and now you have this shining light amid the darkness in Devin Booker, who looks like the prototype two guard.
Right.
So he's really young. It's too early for him to take all this on. He's 19 years old, and now he's the focal point of opponents' defensive plans. But he's what you want moving forward for the franchise. And if he starts, then you're asking probably Brandon Knight to become a sixth man, and that would be a role he was never looking at when he signed here. You've taken away his point guard duties already, probably doing it more so in a new system. So a lot of this is going to have to be decided by whether Ryan McDonough is still the GM or if somebody new comes in with a different philosophy. You already see Earl Watson come in, and he seems to have more of a traditional look at the way to play and probably getting away from that two-playmaker system a little bit. They'll have to be creative if they want to keep the Knight Bledsoe thing together.
Right, and I know you mentioned new management there. I would imagine that probably is going to affect whether Watson stays on as coach or not, or is that pretty much a foregone conclusion that he's just finishing out the season?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. I mean, he's in a hopeless situation in the beginning.
He is.
Their top four scorers for the season are either injured or traded.
Right.
And Devin Booker is their leading scorer.
He's playing well too.
Yeah, he's done well, but he's kind of sort of hit the rookie wall here already. Especially with starting and playing heavy minutes and getting attention.
Of course.
But yeah, it's so Watson's. He's looking at this from a long-term perspective. He's not trying to just get by and win some games to keep the job. He's operating as if he's going to be the coach moving forward to build something. So they're sacrificing some things early and having sort of training camp on the fly during the season as they try to play teams like San Antonio and the Clippers. And, I mean, everybody he's played is 500 or better so far.
Right.
So they're massive underdogs every night.
Paul, before I let you out of here, what about Alex Len? He was the center of the future. They bring in Tyson Chandler, sign Chandler to his $52 million contract, and it doesn't seem like Alex Len has turned that corner. Do you think it's coming with the more maturity and the more he's working with Tyson Chandler, or do you think he might have hit that ceiling as well too?
Well, they'd really hope that Tyson Chandler would be kind of a mentor for him to help ease him into that next level instead of just shoving him out there to force him into it. So he's definitely had some opportunities this year because of Chandler's injuries. He was out for a while with a hamstring. Right now he's been out with a shoulder injury. So Len's had he had a career high 23 the other night. Last night he went head-to-head with DeAndre Jordan and held his own for bits of it, even though it was a massive blowout. So there's definitely good signs in Alex Len still, but it'll be that consistency that you still want to see, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because Chandler's under contract for three more years beyond this. And so when do they ease Len into that larger role while Chandler's getting paid huge money? Len is everything they want as far as how he plays, how he trains, how he works in the off season. The potential of his skill level is good because he's pretty mobile for a guy that size. He's gotten a lot stronger, and he's just a willing learner. Now it's just a matter for him staying healthy, learning the game, building up consistency.
Exactly. Paul, before we let you out of here, how's everybody get in contact through your social media, and what do you have coming up?
On Twitter, it's pretty simple, at Paul Coro, as long as you know how to spell Coro, C-O-R-O. And you can find all of our stories on azcentral.com. Up next for the Suns is probably the one game they can win for a while. They got Brooklyn at home Thursday. So
Yeah, that's
Depending
gonna
on
be
your
an ugly
perspective,
one.
that's either a good chance to win or a must-lose for lottery balls.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the lottery game there.
Exactly. Paul Crow, thanks for calling in on the BMO Harris caller line tonight. Thanks for your time, Paul.
All right, good talking to you.
Yep.
That was the BMO Harris guest line. BMO Harris, the bank that defines great customer service. Visit our friends at 129 East Gore Street.